Hello and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Jennifer Ramirez. Jennifer is an entrepreneur, author, speaker, and coach. She is the founder of And Rise, a nonprofit organization that empowers women to be the ultimate versions of themselves, no matter what adversities they face, and offers women in her community free counseling, free support groups, coaching, women's empowerment events, safe spaces to heal, and so much more. Jennifer is here to share a story of what abuse, sexual coercion, and ultimately finding her freedom and her voice looks like. Like so many, she was naive to what a toxic relationship was. I am excited to have her break some of these concepts down for females that are enduring relationships like this right now. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. You had talked briefly about your father. And I'm curious to know, looking back now, the sexual abuse, or you and I had talked briefly about sexual coercion.
Mhm.
What's your take on that now? And does And Rise do any programs or have any counseling regarding sexual abuse? Because it's so like people don't understand it. I
Mhm.
sometimes don't think I even fully understand how much I was abused.
Yeah. So yes, to answer your second question, yes, we
Right.
do offer free counseling. Unfortunately, it is only in Illinois right now, but my plan is to expand that to the US in the next few years because I want to be able to reach women all over the US. And we do offer support groups. We do have virtual ones. So if you find yourself, whether you've been in a domestic abuse or sexual abuse, our virtual ones cover those topics. So if you need support, the support groups are a really big help to just be in a safe space where there's women that have been through what you've been through. So you might feel crazy or like you're the only one going through it. And it's so not true. There's a lot of ladies out there, unfortunately, that have been through it, but that are there to support you and show you love. And it's very healing and very helpful to just be around people who get it and that aren't judging you or telling you get over it. You're still talking about your sexual abuse from when you were a kid. Get over it. Like that's just not how trauma works. So you can't just get over it. And don't ever tell people that also to get over it. But as far as like the sexual coercion, I mean, yeah, I was sexually abused by my dad, but I don't think, I mean, it probably was coerced, but I was so young. I didn't know. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know why. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the name of it was, what was happening to me. I just knew that it happened at night and it was secretive. So I figured it was wrong because of it was always sneaking around type of thing. But as far as sexual coercion, when I was older, and I guarantee you, everybody listening to this who's a woman can understand about being coerced by a guy that just begs and begs and begs for sex until he finally gets it, or begs for whatever sexual until you even kissing. Like I've had guys, I go on a date, I don't know them, and they're like, "Oh, please, just can I get a kiss?" Or they don't even ask, or they just go in for it and they're trying to like make out with you in front of everybody. And I'm like, oh, like get off. But yeah, sexual coercions is basically making you do stuff that you don't want to do, but making you feel guilty about it if you say no, right? So, for example, let's say I know it's getting a little graphic, but like maybe they want to do anal and that's not your thing, but they're begging and begging. You're saying, oh, but you shouldn't because my ex did, and because that makes me whatever ejaculate faster, and come on, and Or the other thing too that I hear from so many women is not using a condom. The girl wants them to put on a condom. He said he put it on or he doesn't. And that's like a sexual assault, actually. They should be wearing protection, especially if that's what you want. And so just be careful for those things because that is sexual coercion and that's not good. That's not a good thing. It's not healthy. Your no should be a no, and you shouldn't even have to explain why it's a no to them. Your no should just be a no and it should be respected. And if it's not, then that's another huge, huge red flag to pay attention to because you shouldn't have to do anything that you don't want to do.
How do you think that we as females can start to become more comfortable with talking? Like, even while you're saying this to me, I'm thinking of myself. And I'm very comfortable I'm very comfortable with it, setting boundaries. And, I probably talked to my now fiance maybe 2 weeks, had like a very in-depth conversation about sex. We had not had it yet at that point. And, but it was still, why? Why is it so uncomfortable? And how do we get to a place where we feel more confident in talking about it?
Yeah. I think it's uncomfortable for us because we're shamed a lot if we like it. If we are a sexual being or if we like sex, we're a whore or we're a slut. And I think that's what makes it uncomfortable for us to talk about, or we're slut shamed, right? Oh, you like that? Like I think it's society that has taught us like you have to like please everybody, you have to please your man, but you also can't talk about it. And you have to be sexy, but you can't be too sexy because then that's slutty. It's so there's so much like confusion for women. I feel like it, I know for me, I feel like I'm a sexual person. So, and I feel in the past that I've been like kind of shamed for it because of that, and there's a lot of guilt and shame that's associated with that. And I think a way for us to stop feeling so uncomfortable is to just have these conversations, normalize talking about sex, just like society has also taught us to be ashamed of our own periods. We are women. We all get it. It's normal. It's a part of what happens to us every month. It's normal. Yeah. And men, it makes them so uncomfortable. And you've heard it. Oh, that's nasty. Ooh, I don't want to talk about it. So then it makes us feel bad about it, even though it's a normal thing that happens to all of us. And, there's just things like we need to normalize talking about that too, because that is something that is normal. And just like, I think that's what it is. We just need to make these taboo conversations normal things so that they're not so uncomfortable, and that's why I always talk about like, sex and stuff, and people are like, oh, and I'm like, well, that's why I said in the beginning, I always talk about things people don't want to talk about. Like, let's talk about it.
When you started into that with the periods thing, the first thing that popped into my head is how, not trying to stereotype men at all, however, a majority of them that I have been in and amongst with, friends and relationship wise, have no problem breaking wind, like just basically shitting their pants in front of me or in front of like multitudes of people. And it's funny and it smells gross. Why is like that is normal? How is that normal? How is that normalized? But then us getting our periods is not. That's so interesting to me, male and female.
Yeah,
equally like human. It's
I mean,
so
if you think about it too, think about parenting from a mom and a dad. We are held to these high standards as mothers. You have to cook and clean and do their homework and take them a shower and do this and spend time with them. And then dad, if like, oh, whatever, you can come home and spend 5 minutes and cool, whatever. There's no standards I don't want to say there's no standards for men, but I think women are just held to a ridiculously high standard and men are kind of just like, you could just be and it's fine. And I think that's where the disconnect is between us and them, and it's not that I'm like man bashing or man hating.
Yeah,
but that's
totally. I just had a podcast recently with somebody who in her community, she's working on changing or eliminating the words motherhood and fatherhood and changing it to parenthood. Which I thought was so interesting. because it kind of equalizes it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
if you are a single mom going through motherhood, you are still parenting. So you,
Right.
like on all levels, it's just
Yeah.
parenthood. You are now a parent.
Right.
You
No,
know,
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%, definitely.